This entire military is one cohesive, dedicated force. And the threats to our nations, they don't sleep. They're watching our every move. Iran, Russia, China, North Korea, ISIS, Al-Qaeda. They may be watching this right now. Our military should not be mistaken for a cable news gabfest show. We don't care what you look like. We don't care who you voted for, who you worship, what you worship, who you love. It doesn't matter if your dad left you millions when he died or if you knew who your father was. We have been honed into a machine of lethal moving parts that you would be wise to avoid if you know what's good for you. We will not be intimidated. We will not back down. We don't want war. But if you want war with the United States of America, there's one thing I can promise you, so help me God. Someone else will raise your sons and daughters.
Opinions expressed in this program are those of the speakers and do not necessarily reflect the views or positions of any entities they represent.
So my answer to going to college was join the Army. 1992, my life changed forever. PCS to Germany with my two boys and really try to take advantage of the opportunity to travel, learn another language, the culture. It was to me the dream coming true, that everything that I'd been going through was worth it, because I was seeing another part of the world that I wouldn't have had the opportunity if I hadn't been in the military. Planned on getting out in 2000. That was really kind of a part of a joy in my life, and getting married for the second time. And I looked forward to the future. Ended up kind of becoming disillusioned, and that was the whole housing bubble thing where the mortgage jumped from bank to bank to bank. My kids were counting on me to take care of them, to ask for that kind of help. I've done to help other women is make sure that they know what their resources are. It's for a long time I didn't understand that my service in the military counted as a woman veteran, but nobody told me, hey Eva, you're a veteran too, until I had that light bulb moment and said, my service counted too. And I can tell you it's been a long road to learn how to dream again. The community was the solution, be it churches, be it nonprofits, be it veteran service organizations, or just people like myself. We are the resources. We are the solution to help keeping women off of the street, our women veterans housed and having the resources they need and not living in a car. Of the work that grows us as leaders for our second service after the military to serve other people in our communities.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to the From Pain to Purpose radio show. I am your host, Eva Fulton. Welcome to the show. Today is December 20th. The year of our Lord, 2025. Thank you all for joining. We're just 5 days away from Christmas. Can you believe it? We were gifted at work an additional 2 days for the holidays. So that works out well for me. I'm flying Wednesday back home to my state of Texas. Can't wait. I'll get to see my kids and sleep in my own bed. When I'm here in the East Coast, I stay with my dad here in Maryland and work in DC. So I am still a, public servant, still serving our country to the best of my abilities. And welcome everybody. Thank you. I see some nice comments in here in the Not sure what Kareem is saying, but we have G Brow X. Wish you a Merry Christmas in advance. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. You know, I didn't have a guest. I actually had a guest, and it was so kind of weird. So my guest, I don't know if this was just a God thing. Rush was supposed to be on, so shout out to Rush. So sorry that you know, you couldn't be on the show, but there was just this God thing that said, "Hey, Eva, no guest," and like 5 minutes later, he texted me and you know, said that he had some things change. And so just kind of a weird coincidence on that. We'll get him rescheduled. Things, you know, it's the holidays, things happen in life, and I'm okay with everybody, you know, life is lifing, right? That's the saying, life is lifing. And I think that's really kind of, you know, a good way to look at it, that we give grace to everybody at work, at home, out shopping, you know, wherever you are. It's about giving grace and, you know, remembering to keep what is the season about? It's about giving. It's about, you know, being Christ-centered. And if you guys know anything about me, and as you can see, I did put my other title in here. I'm the author of Welcome to My People Garden. If you're looking for a gift, use the QR code up in the upper left-hand corner of the screen, and you know, order it for somebody. Order it for yourself. I am a firm believer in the book that I wrote. It is 12 chapters, and there's 12 disciples. There are 12 tribes, and this was really a big work from God for me to be able to, you know, to write the book. It's you know, it took me 10 years to write it. Took another couple for the rewrite version that came out in August. So that's the QR code. And half of the profits go to Military Broadcast Radio, giving veterans a voice. So in setting up the show, I was like, you know what? I want to make sure other people can enjoy their time. But I have some Christmas stories, and I know that this has been probably some trying times. You know, we just came out of a month and a half on shutdown, and you know, for a lot of the federal government folks, and you know, probably military too, you know, it's been kind of a different kind of a pivot this year, and you know, stresses are out there. So I wanted to share some of my own personal Christmas stories. Some are good, some not so good. But, you know, understanding the 4 pillars of pain that I talk about for the show: physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual. I think in many ways we have to keep all 4 of those in context. Because, you know, as I posted Friday, if you follow me on Facebook, you know, I posted about self-care. And I think in the season that we're all trying to be there and do things for everybody else, we have to sometimes remember to do things for ourselves too. And that's not being narcissistic. It's, you know, it's even what I posted the other day. That's not about being narcissistic. That is self-care. You can't put the oxygen mask on somebody else if you haven't put it on for yourself. And I use that as an analogy. If you've ever flown before, you know, the directions are put the mask on yourself before you put it on somebody else. And I, you know, I have this women's group that I lead as a peer mentor. And I had somebody make a comment to me. She said, you know, Eva, I applaud you that you're doing so much out there and you're still consistent on things. I mean, don't get me wrong. Things do falter. I don't do everything perfectly. Not by any means, you know, some things give somewhere. But her comment was that she was doing so much to take care of other people, ailing parents, her own husband. I think he's a veteran, has some health issues, and then her health has started struggling. I was talking with another good friend of mine yesterday, and she's been taking care of everybody else, her husband and her sister-in-law, and then she was having issues. And so my Friday message is check one, and that can be anybody. It's not just another veteran. It's just somebody else, checking in with somebody else. And, I felt really good being able to check in with my friend and see how she was doing. We haven't talked since the summer. And, sometimes you forget, what did we talk about? how much life has happened since then. But it's important to check in with each other. And sometimes that is just a gift in and of itself. And I will kind of cover some of that stuff as I go through. I'm trying to pop my notes in. I kind of gave myself a little outline of what my Christmas stories are. Like I said, some good, some not so good. And don't be surprised if I cry, because, sometimes we do get in big feels, and that's okay. Because sometimes, just saying it is a healing process in and of itself. So I don't want anybody thinking that, because she's on radio, life has been perfect. No, maybe I'm on radio because life has not been perfect. And I want to be able to encourage somebody else that, try and stay Christ-centered. And if you're not Christ-centered, I'm imploring for you to find, that Christ-centeredness, because, there's a difference. There's a suspicion story that I heard at church one time. This guy goes fly fishing, and the pastor, is over on one part of the creek. He's fly fishing. And if you've been fly fishing, you know exactly what I'm talking about. And he was casting, but wasn't catching anything. And he saw these guys over here. They were catching stuff right and left. And the guide, was like, hey, do you need any help? He's like, no, I'm doing okay. He goes, well, do you see any fish out there? He said, no. And he goes, well, what kind of glasses do you have on? And he says, well, I just have these. And so the guide says, here, try these. So he puts his glasses on, and I think the difference was that they were Polaroids. Don't quote me, but I think that's what they were. And he looks over, he goes, do you see any fish where you were fishing? He says, nope, I don't see anything. He says, how about over there? What do you see over there? He goes, oh man, I see fish. I see fish. And he's like, now think about those lenses as if these are God's lenses for you to see life through. If you're looking through your own lenses and not seeing things through God's vision, then you're not going to see the fish. But if you look at this different area with God's vision, because you have this ability to see things the way He wants you to see them, then you are going to see the fish, and you're going to fish in the area that He wants you to fish in. And I'm saying all of that to say that helps bring us into that Christ-centered mode of things. Because, if you've heard me on the Revivalist show and with Daryl Hartley on Mondays at 4, we are trying to help even up that fourth peg on the spiritual side of things, where we may pay more attention to the physical, mental, and emotional pain, but we sometimes really kind of lag on the spiritual pain. So I'm really hoping that this show is going to kind of even things up, or at least help guide you towards evening things up, because I have had that Christ-centeredness. I think since I was a very young girl, I've just been, I think, very blessed to know that God has been present in my life in so many ways. So anyways, let's go ahead and kick into some of the stories. One of my first memories of Christmas was Dad was he was Air National Guard, so part of the Air Force, and got to go to Germany one year. And I remember we were waiting. Well, I was like 2 years old, but I remember it. My sister was just a baby. I've got a picture somewhere. I think I posted on Facebook or a reminder the other day. But, I just remember Dad's big jacket. I couldn't wait to get that on. And when he got home and got to, stand in his boots right there in front of the Christmas tree, Mom got a really good picture of that. So that was pretty cool. That was a neat celebration of Christmas. Then I'm going to fast forward to 6th grade. So just know I have memory lapses in some time, in some of the periods of my life. I don't know why that has happened. But I have memory lapses. But there are some things that have been pretty key to remember. So 6th grade, Dad came home with this big, huge box. Like it must have been 2 foot by 3 foot by 3 foot. And that was, he came home, had this big box, and it was wrapped in brown paper. He says, need you to wrap it in Christmas paper. You don't have to flip it over or anything because it's so big. I don't want you to hurt yourself, but I need you to go ahead and wrap the present, put a bow on it, and label it for your mom from Santa because it's a microwave. And I was like, so excited, Mom had been at work. And so, I wrapped the present, and Christmas morning happens. And lo and behold, the tag was different. It had my name on it. And I was like, Dad, this is a mistake. I'm 6th grade. I'm trying to tell my dad he's wrong. Dad, don't you remember this present's for Mom? And he goes, no, well, maybe Santa Claus can just take it back then. And I'm like, but it's got my name on it. Right. So that was a big, huge thing. Well, turned out, yes, it was for me. And I don't know if you guys remember when we had this store called, what was it called? That was not Gibson's there. Man, it was a different store that was back then. Kmart. That's what it was. It was Kmart. And they would all, we'd always walk around those stores forever. So anyways, it ended up being this big, huge standalone stereo with the big album, the big record player on top, had the FM and AM station stuff, and it had 8-track tape in it because man, that was the big thing then. And then it had in the front a display where the lights beat to the beat of the music. So that was my big cool thing. Eventually, when I went to college, I cut the lights parts off, and I knew how to run I knew how to run my saw, cut it down, and took it to college with me down to Austin. So that and a waterbed fit in my car. And that was one of those other memories. When I moved out, I was down at Austin going to University of Texas, Austin. And my Christmas tree then, all I could afford was tinsel that I taped to the wall and zigzagged it. Had a little table, and I could only afford getting some ornaments that were down there on 6th Street. And I just thought I was just, doing this really zhuzhy kind of thing, getting my mom these, Christmas ornaments. They were hummingbirds, I think. I was always into trying to do something a little different, but not like, big and huge. Well, then let's go to 1990. So 1990 was this big transition year for me. That's when I had switched from reserves to active duty. Left for active duty right after Thanksgiving. And for a whole year, even before I had decided to go active duty, I signed in, I think, May or June that I was going to go active duty, and I had orders for November. So you got to remember that time frame. Saudi was kicking off. Desert Shield was happening. And, I went to Germany via Saudi Arabia, but I dreamt for a year, even before I decided to go active duty. I dreamt for a year about planes and airports. And I had to think about, I made a note, where were all those airports and everything? So I went from DFW to Atlanta, to Fort Jackson, to DC, to Newfoundland, to Germany, and then in Saudi in the span of 2 weeks. And I went with a group of people I didn't even know. I didn't know any of the people I deployed with. And that was really kind of weird. It was kind of scary. But I had this calm about me. Mom was really worried, of course. And I was not really in too much contact with my dad back then. My parents got divorced when I was 16. And, I just went in with this faith. God's got us. God's got us. I didn't worry. I just prayed. That has always been my answer. And, gosh, this is even the same cross. Oops, here's the cross. This is the same cross I bought when I was 16 years old. Different chain, of course, but I've had this cross since I was 16, and it has been to war and back and different countries and scuba diving. I wear it all the time. And I picked up, this Saint, I think it's Saint Catherine is what I wear. Picked that up this past summer. So I got to do Mass in Saudi for Christmas. And, that was just really kind of a neat, amazing feeling. I remember us gathered. There were maybe 10 of us in a little GP small, but we all did the readings, and, we were given the Eucharist, and, got blessings, and, everybody remained safe. Obviously, I was part of 93rd Signal Brigade, so we provided the signal support for the entire theater. That was part of 7th Corps. And I drove a deuce and a half during Desert Shield, Desert Storm. I did the mail for the brigade and I definitely had God's blessings on that trip. Maybe that's a different show. I can share some of that story, but let's see. Let's fast forward to Christmas in Germany. So this was the Christmas 1999. I got married for a second time that year. And that was pretty neat. So he arrived, I think it was Christmas Eve, and we woke up to a white Christmas in Germany. And a week later, we didn't get to have a honeymoon before, because he was in the States. I was in Texas. I was in Germany with my two oldest sons. They were like 4 and 5 years old then. And so Mark and I got to honeymoon in Paris for the Millennium New Year. So that was pretty exciting to be able to, see those joys. We took a train trip to across the border before or right after Christmas, so the boys could see, just some Christmassy things. We were in K-Town. I was stationed in Kaiserslautern, and took the boys skating. If y'all were down there, the Christmas market, and enjoyed that. That was one of my favorite Christmases. And even just being in the military overall, inviting single soldiers over has always been a great part of the tradition, of course. And I think it's really important for us to even remember to do that as civilians, invite people over, retirees, veterans who may be spending Christmas alone. And I will cover that at the end, but I just want to plug that in. That was one of my favorite memories. I think before my first husband and I, Rick and I, before we left Germany that first time, the Corsos, shout out to the Corsos, part of the 93rd Herd. They invited us over to their house for Christmas. So that was pretty neat because, our unit was shutting down. That was 1991. So I'm sorry, I'm going backwards. I didn't put that in my little outline. But that was pretty neat to be able to go do Christmas with them. And then I think I remember that right. I hope I'm not making that up. So I told you sometimes I have memory lapses. So, you kind of have to remember who was where and when. But I'm pretty sure that's what had happened. They let us spend Christmas with them. And then orders took us to, to Georgia, to Fort Stewart, Georgia. So I did get to see my family then right after the first year. So anyways, so with the second marriage, the big thing we've had in the Fulton family was we had Christmas ornament exchange at Thanksgiving. And the idea was that you would take the ornament and, you would buy an ornament and you wrap it, and we do this big gift exchange with the ornaments at Thanksgiving, because then you're going to be able to have a new ornament to take home and put on your Christmas tree. So we have a lot of mocksnicks, ornaments at the house in Texas that don't have any rhyme or reason, because we've always had these different Christmas ornaments, but in some ways that really kind of makes it fun. And of course, some people buy the really, intricate, very pretty fancy ones. And sometimes it's the goofball. I think one of the kids one time picked up the big box and it was this big gold ornament that was like 10 inches, it was like a basketball size, big, huge thing. Where are we going to put that? I don't know. We never quite figured out what to do with that thing other than trying to re-gift it the next year. But Christmas Eve with the in-laws was always going to the Japanese hibachi bar. And, and even we did it last year. That, we got 20 people. You have to put in the reservation, but it was always pretty neat that Christmas Eve was, that group of family getting together, because Christmas morning was really being at your own homes, opening up your Christmas gifts and, being in the PJs and not having to rush around, that was pretty neat. A couple of years we went and did the girls. We went to the ballet and saw the Nutcracker. I took my daughter a couple of years ago to the Nutcracker, and that was pretty neat in Dallas. So, I've had some really pretty good ones. And then 2008 happened. So I'm halfway through the show. 2008 was the pivotal turn. And I think it's important to not hide when things change in life that you're not expecting it to. So that summer, things, I thought things were normal. You try to look back and think, well, what happened? Cody got sick with cryptosporidium. Look it up. It's the germs from the water at the pool. And, we had to deal with talking with CDC. Mark got one of the cousins of cryptosporidium, got sick a whole different way. I ended up getting it as well, not the crypto. I got a different cousin. And Cody was really, really sick. I mean, it was awful. But Mark didn't ever quite recover. And he, had different health appointments and wasn't necessarily telling me everything. I'm sorry, that was before 2008. So that was that right? No, that was 2008. But 12/21/2008, I was working for my first federal department at the time and took leave. I, was at home baking, and my 5-year-old daughter then walked in. Here I am baking whatever I was baking, because I forget. And she said, Mom, Dad's got a new home. He's going to paint our rooms, but you're not going. Sorry. And out of the mouths of babes, I'm sure she did not know what she was saying, but I knew in an instant that my life was changing, and this was not something I had on my radar. And we had just had our anniversary in September. We spent it at Gaylord. I thought things were fine, even though, Mark had ended up getting sick. I didn't have that on my bingo card that year that my husband was leaving me. And that put me on a path of going to different churches, talking to different pastors, searching and searching. I'd go to church and wrote notes, whatever, there's some scripture that might have, spoke to me. Some kind of words of encouragement that came out of the sermon that spoke to me. And I accumulated 10 years of all of that. And that became the birth of Welcome to My People Garden. That was my healing. And, that also meant lots of some holidays by myself. Because I had 2 ex-husbands, and both sets of kids would go with their respective fathers, and I would be at home by myself. That was a trying time. Ironically enough, that was at the beginning of Facebook, and I had people who were sending those little farm things, if y'all remember that farm game, and people would send me these little, send me the corn, send me the pigs, whatever it was, the seeds for whatever. That was really kind of the neat thing of how Welcome to My People Garden was born, was going through these trying times and people pouring into me, not knowing how much I was struggling, how alone I felt. But I had God who was holding me together. And then I had some people at work who were pouring into me, because God knows that I was searching for the answers, and I didn't know where to find them other than God help me. God help me. It just, and there wasn't that support at the VA, and I wouldn't have thought of going to the VA anyways. And that's how I played this video at the beginning, because that's the trailer for my film, From Pain to Purpose, Her Second Service Story. So all those women that you saw in that trailer were people who were pouring into me around that time and through that time. And probably to note, my first ex-husband passed away in 2014, and my second ex-husband passed away in 2015. So now, putting it out there on the record, never in a million years did I think I'd have 4 kids and no dads around, and managed to do what I'm doing and how I've been doing it. Have I been perfect by any means? No. But God has been my savior through all of this. I've also had a lot of physical ailments, and I'll kind of get back over to my notes here. That, there was one year from a financial standpoint and this was 2009. I was graduating with my MBA. That was a whole, I'm going to use that phrase, shit show. That was a whole shit show. And I'll tell that in a moment. That I was finishing my MBA. My computer got a virus. In fact, my son's computer got a virus. My mother's computer got a virus. I had two 50-page research papers for my final class for my MBA, and computer crashed. I was shopping at the Mattel store in Fort Worth. I took off. I think we got off early. This was December 18th, 2009. And I got a call from the provost, and the provost said, Miss Fulton? Yes. We're just letting you know that you can't, I forget what the phrase is called. Sometimes I get the, phraseology words missing. You can't finish it in January is essentially what she was trying to say. You have to finish it by Monday at noon. You have to have scores in the system by Monday at noon, or not only will you not graduate now, you will not graduate with this master's program ever, because that as a 0, as an F, would have tanked. Even though I had been dean's list on all the other classes, that one class zeroing out would have prevented me from ever being able to complete my MBA. So somehow magically, just that week of, I had managed to get the computer running again, but I had to start from scratch because all the research I had done, I had been sending it to myself from another computer. It all disappeared when the computer got wiped clean because I had to rebuild it. I wrote 2 50-page research papers that weekend and ended up with B in the class. The professor called me Monday. I think I had like 6 hours of sleep the whole weekend. And I had told him, because he had called me after the provost, and I said, don't worry, God's going to help me through this. And he did. But he was like, I can't imagine, this was Monday morning, guys, I can't imagine what the papers would have looked like had you had more time to do them, because they were A+ papers. But because they were late, I have to give you Bs. So I graduated in 2009 with my MBA. And, but that was also a year I was working, but I had very little funds, and I had to make the very difficult, decision. We lost everything in 2008, had to put everything in storage on a trailer. All that stuff is still on a trailer somewhere in Dallas. I have no clue how to find the new owner of the property. If the trailer is still there, it was a big, huge semi-trailer, locked full. But I did have the key then, probably still have the key somewhere at the house. But my mom drove over there with me, and I had to pull stuff off of that trailer and re-gift it to my kids. The older boys, had grown out of those little bicycles and some of their toys and clothes. Their stuff I rewrapped and gave it to my little ones. That was probably the toughest financial Christmas that I'd ever been through. And I knew nothing about Toys for Tots, knew nothing. I didn't know about any of those resources, was not plugged into church. in that regard. And maybe part of it was just pride, and not knowing what resources were there. And I think that's in some ways why we've gotten so much better as a veteran community, because we have been more sharing in sharing, this kind of information. Let's skip to 2022. So that was actually one of the best Christmases that I've had in recent years. I didn't buy normal gifts and wrap them in gift paper. About 6 months worth of time, I bought my kids ski clothes. I bought them winter clothes. I bought them, some snow boots and different stuff like that. And I booked us a trip. We stayed in Ouray for a week. Beautiful area out there. Man, I'd love to go back in the summer and hike those trails out there. I can only imagine. Yes, go to the to the hot springs, pools. That was beautiful. But we went to Telluride. I skied down the mountain. My kids all tumbled down the mountain. They thought that I laughed. I'm sorry. They didn't want to take the classes. I tried warning them. They were trying to, what's the other thing? Snowboard. They were trying to snowboard. We got this. We don't need I'm like, telling you, you need to get classes. We got there late. They were not early risers. They missed the class and they tumbled down the hill. I think Carrie made it, 50 feet. She gave up. I wasted my money on that. But I made it down the hill twice. I was slow. I made it twice. I was so proud of myself. I can still laugh. I'm sorry, kids. Y'all. One of these days you'll learn to listen to me. I might have a little bit of wisdom for you guys, but anyways, we had a good time otherwise. But I also learned the limits, that was, I have to learn the limits of my illnesses as well. So I'll get to that in a minute. But on the way back, my oldest son had flown in from Detroit, and obviously I had to drop him back off at the airport so he could fly back to his house. On our way out of town, was it Gunnarsson, whatever that is, whatever that big town is after we left out of Ouray before we went back to Denver. If you know the route, you probably know which town I'm talking about. It's one of the larger cities. They had a Walmart, and we had stopped to get snow chains, and I just had an inkling, right? Because the roads were icing up, and sure enough, going out of town, there's this incline, and traffic was stopping. I drive a big GMC Sierra, and we started struggling. I pulled over. Jordan and I got out, started trying to put the chains on because the traffic was stopped. And I was squatted down about 18 inches trying to put the chains on, and my foot started sliding out. So fair warning, I'd already broke my back in the ice storm, the Texas ice storm in 2022. I thought it had healed up. Skied, no problem. But it was this putting on the chain and my foot sliding out. That little thing broke my back again. And I drove all the way back to Denver with a broken back. My kids were not equipped to drive the truck. They, Jordan was old enough, but not experienced enough driving the truck and how it handles. So I took some Tylenol, extra strength, and drove all the way back to Denver with a broken back. And man, that was tough. so I feel very fortunate to do the things that I've been doing since then physically, to have healed enough to be able to go hiking. I celebrate these as wins, but there are still some challenges in my physical life and what that future is going to look like. But 2023 was when my mother passed away. So just before Thanksgiving, I was on a ski trip. I think that was during the Veterans Day timeframe. Mom got really sick. I was on a scuba trip that time with a good friend of mine, John Taylor and his wife, and met some other neat people that week. I only got 2 full days of diving in, and my brother called me, or did Mom call me at first? She was in the hospital. We didn't think it was going to be serious, but it turned serious really fast, and she passed away when I was at the airport trying to go back. So that changed the look of what Christmas 2023 looked like. And I think I did manage to barely get, I forced myself to get Christmas presents. I forced myself to get the tree out a little bit last year. I did get to spend Christmas at the house last year. We did have Christmas, Dad was there. We had some other friends over, played some poker, and, I think we had a pretty decent time. Not everything was perfect, but I think we did the best we could. And now this year, I don't fly back until the 24th. So I'm kind of out of sorts on getting in the full spirit of things. I bought the hat today at the grocery store, and I've not decorated anything. I actually did get cards made out this week. I haven't dropped them in the mail yet. So if I asked you for your address, just know I am going to get them out in the mail probably Monday. They'll go out in the mail on Monday. But at least I'm getting cards out, and I'm pretty excited that I'm actually managing to do that. But we haven't decorated any. I'm not there to decorate. I don't arrive in DFW until around noon. And so this feels, this year feels a little different. I feel a little out of sorts. And I don't know what, future years will look. I know one thing. I have bought some gifts that I'm bringing with. I'm kind of over the gift thing. I enjoy the memories. Doing the ski trip thing was way better. I enjoy, the living Christmas. I think that's really the biggest aspect of what I've enjoyed about the recent Christmases in these past years was living Christmas, and not because those are memories, right? Widgets can kind of come and go, but memories are, and I've had problems with memory sometimes, but these memories for Christmas seem to hang around better for me. And I think that's important, because as we get older, we're going to remember things differently. And the only thing I'm really regretting about Christmas this year is that my dad's going to be here by himself. He was supposed to be someplace else for Christmas. I already made my flight arrangements and everything. And I haven't been home and seen my kids and slept in my own big bed, since July. And so I couldn't change that, but everything's not perfect that way. But I say that to say, I've had some recent health news that I have lupus, and I have Lyme. Didn't see. I thought I had it way back when, but I finally got official diagnosis last week as a result of going through the VA in-depth study. So in some ways, I have some confirmation, but I've had to kind of sit in it and make this conscious choice that I'm going to keep living my best life. I'm not going to let illness define me. I am not going to let it change my trajectory on life. I will deal with any of these physical, mental, emotional challenges as they come. But I have resources that I know now that I can reach out to that I haven't maybe utilized before, right? And I'm just going to keep putting one foot in front of the other. Y'all hear me, you've heard me before about hiking, one foot in front of the other. I'm going to keep doing that in life. And I think as we go through these challenges that we go through as life happens, as life is actually happening and the relationships with people change, people come and go. Those are the seasons we're not meant to be glued at the hip with everybody, but you do find who your people garden is. And I am so very thankful for the people who people garden with me, because I've had some really amazing people, people garden with me who didn't know that they were gardening with me when they did it. And that's the joy, because they did it without an expectation or knowing that I was receiving it the way they did. I struggled too. As much as I try to people garden with other people, I have people who people garden with me. And that is such a blessing to know that there are these people out there who give and they are kind. And I think we have to remember, as much and as easy as it is to be kind with others, strangers, we have to remember to give the grace and kindness and bring it home to the people that are in our innermost circles, right? That we have to be tender, that we have to keep that Christ-centered perspective in things. One of the spiels that I talk about in Welcome to My People Garden, when you have this relationship right, and I'm talking about with God, when you have this right, then you can get this right with other people. It may not always be perfect, because the only thing that you can really affect is your reaction to other people. But as long as you are staying centered and focused with how you are living your life and your relationship with God and Jesus and the Holy Spirit, and letting them work with you, then that spiritual healing and recovery can happen. Just as I've gone through and I explained this, some of these trauma and challenges that I've had, the physical, the mental, the emotional, and the spiritual. Because believe me, I don't know how many times I've asked, why me, God? What did I do wrong? How did I disappoint you? And what I have learned over the years is that I have to remember who I serve. I serve God, and it is only Him and through Him that my faith has kept me putting one foot in front of the other. And I don't care if you're sitting alone by yourself, remember, open the great book up, right? Open it up and find the answers here. It's not going to be an answer on the TV. It is not going to be an answer on the phone, unless you're watching this show, unless you're watching something else that is feeding you spiritually to navigate and get through the challenges that you're going through. Get out of your house, get plugged in, go for a walk, join a coffee club, go out, go serve somebody else. There are homeless shelters out there that would love to have you serve somebody else. And believe me, the joy you get out of giving is going to be tenfold than any present that somebody could give you. Mark my word. And if you find something different, then let me know. And maybe we just got to find a different place for you to go serve. But it will help you get out of your funk, because the devil is aching to steal, kill, and destroy your happiness and joy. It's like the Grinch, loving to take all of those presents away. Well, it happens from the physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual aspect as well. Started off with Genesis. If you haven't been listening to the Revivalist radio show, we've already seen who walks with God, who doesn't walk with God. The choice is walk with God, right? Walk with God. That's where the present comes from. That is where you're going to get filled. That is why the gift of giving is so important right now, because it's coming from Jesus. He is the gift. And when you and I, where did my glasses go? I'll put the shades on for a moment. Because I was mentioning about Polaroids a while ago, right? When we put God's vision on, this should be a neat looking screenshot. We put God's vision on and we're centered and focused here. We're gonna work wonders, out in growing our people garden. So, oops, what happened to the screen? Sorry. Whoop. Sorry. That was weird. Sorry. Screensaver went on. Boop. Hit the glasses in the wrong place and screen went down. So anyways, I think I'm running out of time. I'm going to say a quick prayer for everybody if you're traveling, be safe. Dear Father, keep everybody who is traveling to go see loved ones safe, give them patience to get through all of their traveling challenges, to get to their destinations, to find their loving families, to everybody is safe and find joy and grace and get through this season and, find some place so that they are not sitting at home, dwelling in those thoughts and not letting Satan in. God, be there for them, guide them, help them find the gift of your Son during this season. In your name we pray. Amen. Thank you all for joining me on the Christmas stories this year. I told you I might cry a little bit, had some tears up. So anyways, I think I have a guest next week, and I'm pretty sure that is Brian. And then I have, Samantha is coming to my house, for the New Year's, what is that? The second, third, whatever that Saturday is. She's going to be in person in my house. So looking forward to that. Y'all have a very Merry Christmas, and thank you for joining me on the From Pain to Purpose radio show. Catch you Monday. Join Daryl and I with the Revivalists as we jump into Genesis chapter 8. Y'all have a fantastic Merry Christmas. Bye.
Life is like a duck. Tough times don't last, but tough people do. Here at Military Broadcast Radio, we're teaming up with our friends at Die Tired, the veteran-friendly music band spreading strength, resilience, and mental health awareness one shirt at a time.
And check this out. Their brand new shirts feature broadcast beaker right on the breast pocket. A reminder that you can weather the storm, and you're never alone.
Shirts are only $25, and proceeds support giving veterans a voice. MBR's mission to teach veterans how to podcast and videocast. Because when our vets are talking, they're not overthinking. They're not second-guessing. Together, we stop the 22 stigma. Grab your shirt today at mbradio.us and hit the shop. Or go directly to toramerch.printavo.com/merch/dietiredband. That's toramerch.printavo.com/merch/dietiredband.
Suit up, stand strong.
Remember, we're unduckable together.
You're built tougher than the storm.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for tuning in to Military Broadcast Radio. As we wrap up today's show, we want to remind you that the podcast of today's episode will be available right after we go off the air. So if you missed any part of the show or want to listen again, be sure to check it out. And remember, we're here to support and honor our veterans. Your stories and experiences matter, and we are committed to giving you a platform to share them. That's right. We're here to give our veterans a voice. So don't forget to catch the podcast and stay connected with us. Giving our veterans a voice.